Halacha Hey, Daf Tesayim Ralph, the Mishnah. Pretty easy Gemara tonight. Could finish again in 10 minutes. Didn't we finish in 10 minutes last night? Somebody who sells individual tree trunks in his field. Now, what? Yeah, he sells them to, he sells them. No pay gives pay on each of the buyers give pay on each and every trunk. Whoever buys the trunk, he but gives the pay from the tree. If the owner of the field didn't leave anything in his possession, however, if the owner left in his possession, he left some in the field in his possession, then who knows the owner must give pay on everything. Where are you looking? You're in the wrong Masechta. You're in Brachas. That'll do it. Okay. Okay, Gemara. Ad Kedun Kshis Chilik Tzor. This sounds like it's true when the owner has already started harvesting. So since the owner's already started harvesting, the chiyuv of payah devolves upon him. So then, as long as he left himself some of the tree trunks, he's the one who has to take off the payah. What about afiluk shalois chilik tzor? What about when the owner has not yet begun harvesting? Does the chiyuv on the trees for paying the trees still devolve upon him, or does it devolve upon each of the individual people who bought the tree trunks? Nishmina min adah. Let us extrapolate this issue. Let us infer it from the following statement about shearings. Lokach gez tzona shel chaver zaloch. Of course, reishis hagez, the first shearings have to be given to the Kohen, right? So, lokach gez tzona shel chaver. If I take shall I buy your shearings? Im shira moicher. If the mocher was left some of the shearings, you, the seller, left some shearings in your possession. Hamocher chayev. You have to give the shearings to the Kohen. If I bought all the shearings, if not, rather I bought all the shearings, I'll okay chayev. I, the buyer, I'm chayev. Now, Rabbi Yerushalmi Peah Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the gears is a bit messed up. The Rash earlier was a good gear, so correct me as we go along, okay? Rabbi Yerushalmi Peah Rabbi Yochanan. Here says name Rabbi Yochanan. The Rabbi Yehuda. This is like Rabbi Yehuda. Now, what Rabbi Yehuda said we'll see in a minute. But in the meantime, what we see from there, it seems, is that there's no distinction made whether you began shearing or didn't begin shearing. So whether you began or not, who's got to give the first shearings to the Kohen? As long as the mocher left some in his possession, as long as the seller left some of the shearings in his possession, he's the one who has to give the first shearings to the Kohen. Okay, so we extrapolate from there to here and say here too, same thing. As long as the seller left some grain in his possession, whether he began harvesting or not, he gives the payah to the poor people. Says more Rabbi Yerushalmi Rabbi Yochanan said Rabbi Yehuda. Says more. Wait a minute. Shani yitamon ben sheisrael ligzos uben sheisrael ligzos ben shelo yisrael ligzos. Is there any difference there between whether he began to lizot sono, whether he began to shear a sheep, whether he didn't begin to shear a sheep? V'ka, if that's the case, lo shani olei ben shikka. Also here, lo shani olei ben shitzchel litzor ben shelo yitzchel litzor. Here too, there's no difference between whether he began to harvest or didn't begin to harvest. Okay, that's clear. That there's no difference there, and there should be no difference here. The problem is what the Gemara achieved by bringing down Rabbi Yerushalmi and name Rabbi Yehuda before. Well, it seems like a dangling statement. So I don't know, it might be a little bit out of order. So now the Gemara gets back to Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, my time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the logic of Rabbi Yehuda who seems to be making the inference? That's what it seems to be. Making the inference that here, even if you didn't begin harvesting yet, you still, the mocher is the one who's chayiv in payah, to give payah from his field. And he made the inference of racist, I guess. What's his logic? Is his logic because mishum dechavas hakotir bakoma is a lom d'shul hakiro we're about to learn. It's going to be an abstract issue. Is it because the requirement to give Peah remains always in the standing grain? Because that's the nature of Peah. You give it from the last grain in your field. Or is it mishum demochelo chutz michavaso? Is it because when you sell the field, you sell whatever portion you sell, excluding, I should say, the part which is to be set aside for Peah. In other words, implicit in any contract of sale of any part of the field is that who retains the Peah? The owner retains the chiyuv to give Peah. So what again, the two possibilities are that it's because of the chovas hakotzi b'koma, means the natural phenomenon, that it's the last bit of grain which is left to the honey. It's possible that it's a contractual thing, not an automatic phenomenon, but a contractual thing implicit in any contract is that the seller is the one who retains the chiyuv of Peah. So now the Gemara goes...
Is it like a Hefza and Gavra issue?
Well, it's kind of like Hefza and Gavra. I guess you could say that if you really wanted to... If you wanted to bang these round pegs into square holes, then you could say that one is a din in the Hefza, or it's Chovas HaKotzi B'Koma implies a din in the Hefza, right, in the karka itself, how you harvest, etc. Whereas the other one, which seems to be a retention based on contractual obligations, din in the Gavra. Yeah, it could be done that way. Okay? I see a real brisker Dr. Spindel. Okay, so it says the Gemara, my time is Rabbi Yehuda. What's the logic of Rabbi Yehuda? I just went back a line and read it over again. So let's learn out of that self-same case, really, of Lokach gets tzon chavero. Lokach gets tzon chavero, Shira moichar moichar chayev. We said that if the moichar leaves over, the moichar is chayev, then the moichar is chayev. V'im lok lav, lokeach chayev, and if not, lokeach is chayev. Now, what are we trying to prove from there? Before we do it, let's read the next line. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, that is Rabbi Yehuda's svara. Oh, so wait a second. What's going on there by Rashis, I guess? So says the Pnei Moshe explains, or rather, not the Pnei Moshe, the Ridbaz explains. Ridbaz explains, if you take a look here, you see where the Mishnah begins in the Gemara? So 3 lines below that in the Ridbaz, he says, Nishmina min hadah. You'll have to listen. Nishmina min hadah. You see Nishmina min hadah in the Ridbaz. That's the commentary on the outer part of the page. Nishmina min hadah, 3 lines below where the Mishnah begins. The first word in the line is Nishmina min hadah. 3 lines below there. Okay? Nishmina min hadah. Let's start from here. Lokach gets sonuchli isol meimer tamon shechavas zakatzi b'choma. I really have to read the rest of the Gemara. All right, so let's go back to the Gemara. It's not going to help unless I read the rest of the Gemara. So it says the Gemara, Isloch l'meimar tamon. Maybe read the rest of the Gemara. We do dispense with the Ridbaz. So the third line from the bottom of the Gemara, Isloch l'meimar tamon shechavas hakotzi b'choma. There you can't say chovas hakotzi b'kama. Yeah, I'll do it without the Ridbaz. There you can't say chovas hakotzi b'kama. Why not? Interesting thing which Ridbaz explains. The Ridbaz says, listen, Rashis Hages, how does it work? Peah means you have to leave stuff standing. By Rashis Hages, the chiv is the opposite. What's the chiv? To give, right. To shiur and to give. So if you're going to extrapolate, like Rabbi Yehuda did, from Rashis Hages to Peah, you cannot say that the underlying svara, why the mocher has to give the Peah, is because chovas hakotzi b'koma, because the Peah still has to be standing at the end, because by Rashis Hages aderabba, by Rashis Hages we dafka want you to shiur and give. The mitzvahs are completely different if that would be the point of case by Peah. Again, you see, so a very interesting abstract concept. It's beautiful. By Peah, it's true that the Chobas HaKotzir might be Bakoma. Because you're supposed to leave the Koma, you're supposed to leave the stalk standing. That's how you give Peah. But Reishis Hagezi is the antithesis of that. Reishis Hagezi is the antithesis in that there the mitzvah is dafka to shiur and to give. So how can you draw an analogy between the two? Only if you say that which the moicher has to give is a contractual obligation. Because then I could say, okay, it doesn't have to do with the nature of the mitzvah, which is completely different, but rather with the contract between the buyer and seller. So here we see from this we prove that it must be that the underlying svore of our Mishnah, if Rabbi Yehuda says they're both the same, is that the underlying svore is that not chobas hakotzir bakoma, that the chiyuv is retained by the last bit which is standing, because then there would be no inference to be made by Reishis Hagez. Rather, it must be the svore is that whenever a buyer buys things from a seller and their mitzvah is attached to the lot from which he's buying the stuff, so that mitzvah remains in the hands of the seller. Okay? So that's what the Gemara says. Isel l'meimer tamon, again, 3 lines to the bottom. Isel l'meimer tamon shechovas kotzir b'koma. You say the chovas kotzir is in the koma? No, can't be. It must be. Mishum demochru lo chutzi chavaso. It must be that it must be because he sold it to him besides the chiyuv. In other words, he retained the chiyuv peah to himself. Because it must be also here, b'machru chutz mi chavaso. Excuse me, that he sold to him besides the chiyuv.
All we've decided, though, is that the svar of Rabbi Yochanan, in explaining Rabbi Yehuda, the Talmud, is that this latter point. But that doesn't mean that the Talmud of Rabbi Yehuda necessarily, because the truth is...
Oh, that right. Well, Rabbi Yochanan said that both Rabbi Yehuda. So if Rabbi Yochanan says that both Rabbi Yehuda, then they must be. You're right. Maybe it's Rabbi Yochanan who's making the comparison, not Rabbi Yehuda. All right, but that's not germane to it. You're right. That's the point.
But there's some point. All I'm saying is that, all right, it's true that it must be, Rabbi Yochanan must hold us a contract, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we can. I mean, the whole connection between the two is so logical, because just what you said.
Yes. But if Rabbi Yochanan draws a parallel, but yes. So, but we're going to base ourselves. In other words, for us, that's a primary source. You're right. Rabbi Yehuda is a time, Rabbi Yochanan's an Amora, but the Gemara is treating Rabbi Yochanan as a primary source here. So, as far as our proceeding and learning, it makes no essential difference. Okay. So it says the Gemara, "Ma nafik be'benon." What's the nafkimina? Nafik be'benon is the Yerushalmi lingo for nafkimina. What's the nafkamina? Whether we use the svare of chovas hapeah bakoma, that the chova is retained in the last stalk standing, or use the svara of the mocher contractually retains the mitzvah. So two cases the Gemara is going to give. Halokechu mafresh. Let's say the buyer set aside peah. He himself set aside peah. In Tamar, if you're going to say, turning the page, if you're going to say that it's because chovas hakotzir bakoma, in other words, that the chiyuv is retained by that which is standing, hifrish, all right, big deal. So whatever he set aside, he's allowed to set aside peah. He has koma too. Let him set aside some koma is peah. Nishkefrelach. What do we care? Whatever he sets aside, he'll set aside. However, but if you're going to say that when it's sold him without the chiyuv, in other words, the mocher retains a contractual obligation to set aside the peah, he frish, if in that case, the loker sets aside peah, and the mocher therefore does not have to set aside peah, then the mocher has to make restitution to the loker. Again, if you're going to say it's because of chovas hakotzir bakoma, so whoever wants to take peah, let him take peah. As long as there's koma left in the field, you can take peah from it. The loker will take peah, the mocher will take peah. The mocher says, it's not my business you took peah. You want to take peah, it's your business. I didn't tell you to take peah. But if you're going to say the loker, and even if, again, in that case, even if the mocher decides not to leave peah because he relies on the loker, if that's mutter, I'm not sure if I'm talking off the top of my head. But theoretically, let's say it's the case. Then the loker's peah can cover the mocher's field. So then the mocher doesn't have to make restitution loker. He had no contractual obligation to make restitution for the peah. But if in the second case, the latter case, loker sits inside his peah, where he doesn't have to, so then certainly the mocher has to reimburse him. If that's true, whether the mocher is deriving benefit from it because he doesn't set aside peah, and even if he's not, because the loker comes later on and says, I didn't know this, but now that I know that the peah, it comes from you, not from me, so I want to have restitution for this. Okay, that's part of your contractual obligation. That's one chiluk. So it says more. Nisra, another nafkamin is Nisra chelko shamocher. Loker bought half the field. Now the mocher's half gets burned down. It burns down. Loker's part is still extant. The buyer's part is still extant. If you're going to say that the chovas hakotir is bakama, then nisraf. Then the peah, that which would the peah should have been taken off of, which is the standing stuff of the mocher. I apologize. Made a mistake in the case. Loker already harvested when this burned down. He harvested his entire half, but now he still has the sheaves. He still has the shorn sheaves. So we know if there's no peah taken from the field, you take from the sheaves, right, from that which is already harvested. So now, if you're going to say the chovas hapeah is bakama, right, so that means that the kama which was burnt down held the shiur peah. So you go zanim's one peah, we say, I'm sorry, too bad. That where the peah would have been was burnt down. What Lokeach harvested already, there was no chiyuv on that, because he was relying on the mocher. The mocher has nothing to give, so there's no peah here. So nisraf. So, but if you're going to say that the halacha is really that the whole field is chayv in peah, and that lokeach just doesn't have to give it because it's implicit in the agreement that the mocher is going to set it aside. Well, here, okay. Because the mocher has nothing to set aside, but the field is still chayv in peah. So therefore, in this case, when it's burnt down, then the lokeach is going to have to give peah from his sheaves. He takes money from the mocher. Do you see that nafkamina? It's a little bit more complicated. Let me go through it again. Again, this is talking about a case where the mocher sold half his field. Lokeach harvest that entire half. Now the mocher's field burns down. The other half burns down. If you're going to say that the reason why lokeach is exempt is because the shiur peah remains by the mocher. In his kama, there's no more kama to get. No kama. It's not his fault. It's not anybody's fault. Tanim lose out. Tafanim. If you're going to say, however, that really the shiur peah doesn't specifically devolve upon the kama standing in the mocher's possession, but rather really still is incumbent on the entire field. It's just that there's an implicit understanding in the contract that the mocher will be the one to take it off. So then, if in the event that the mocher cannot take it off because all of his stuff burned down, so then it has to come from the lokeach sheaves in this case. Nonetheless, the mocher is chayav. Okay, so what does the mocher do? The mocher pays the lokeach for having taken off the peah. Okay? So this is the nafkamina between the two cases. These are two nafkaminas between whether the underlying logic is that shiur peah bekama, that shiur peah is specifically only on that which is standing and still in the mocher's rishus, or whether the shiur peah is in the entire field. It's just that the mocher has accepted by himself the contractual obligation of being the one to give it. Okay?
Does the Gemara drawing a conclusion again with the Rishis Agez, or did that somehow?
Rishis Agez. At the beginning, the Gemara did draw a conclusion, but I didn't draw attention to it. Gemara's conclusion was that it's regardless of whether you began harvesting or not, and regardless of whether you began shearing or not, whenever the mocher leaves stuff by him, he has a contractual obligation to give the Peah or the Rishis Agez from that which he left in his possession. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. By the way, the same thing will be true then by Rishis Agez. If the Rishis Agez of the mocher burns, so then Lokech is going to have to do the Rishis Agez, and the mocher will reimburse Lokech for giving the Rishis Agez. Okay? The same svara applies there.
I just don't think the logic of Nisraf is so compelling. I mean, you can always argue that from the first second that the series started, whatever's left, and no matter what state it becomes later on, whether it becomes harvested or not harvested, it's considered koma. So therefore, it's not necessarily the idea of moving down. It's instead that the chiv just is transformed from
to what?
To the katsir state.
But according to you don't like the Yerushalmi's Peah.
What I'm saying is that the distinction is necessarily a between the two logics.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's not compelling.
You don't like that we say that if chovas hakotzir bakoma, then mashu nisraf. Why don't you like that?
Because the chiyuv of Peah begins at the first second that the katsira starts.
Yeah.
Once you start the katsira, already there's
one shibolus,
and there's
right?
comma. There's already comma. So therefore, the fact that everything got...
Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying, but the thing is, when we say chovas hakotzir bakoma, it means the last bit of comma. Not everything which is left in the field after the first stalk has been cut.
But doesn't the Chiyuv Peah begin at the time
The Chiyuv Peah begins. The Chiyuv Peah begins, but the Chiddush of... If you would say this for a Chovas Kotzir B'Koma, that would imply a Chiddush, which you're not going to like. But the Chiddush which would imply would be that which it is limited to is the last bit of Kama. In other words, it's not an all the Kama other than the first stalk, as you're presenting the case,
right.
But rather it would have to be the last bit of Kama left standing in the mocher's possession, which was, of course, burned down. So that would be a big Chiddush, but that's what you have to say in order to understand that perspective properly. Okay, before everybody falls asleep, let's go further. Allah Chavad. Rabbi Lezer Omer. Rabbi Lezer says, now, this Mishnah is going to contradict what we've assumed till now. The Gemara will come around to us, to it, don't worry. Actually, next Mishnah will come around to it. This Mishnah says, Rabbi Lezer Omer, Kaka Beis Rova, the amount of ground which can grow Beis Rova is Chayav Peah, which is approximately 100 square amos, a little bit more than that. So that's it. Rabbi Yerushalmi Peah, a base Osayim, has to be able to do a base Osayim, which is somewhat more, I believe. Rabbi Tavim Shisha Tvachim, even ground which is 6 by 6 Tvachim is Chayav Peah. Rabbi Yerushalmi Omer Kadei Lishno Lichtzor V'Lishnos. Enough, you have to have enough grain that you can do 2 scythefuls, right? I don't know what the difference between a scythe and a sickle is. They both do the same thing, right? Yeah, a scythe is... a sickle is communist, right? That's what's on the communist flag. Scythe is a straight one, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, too. So, he carries a scythe. Yeah, the elixir of lishos means to get 2 sicklefuls of grain. But that's not true. We're going to see in the next Mishnah who we pass like. We don't pass like Rabbi Sarah. My time, Rabbi Lezer. What's the logic, Rabbi Lezer? Rabbi Lezer says it's a base rova. Nermar kan sodcha. It says here sodcha. V'nermar mikilayim sodcha. It says sodcha by kilayim as well. Mas sodcha shnermar la'alo, and just like a sodcha which is mentioned by kilayim is base rova. You're not it says there that if you have a field of one type of grain, and you have within it a field of something else, which is a rova of a rova or less, then that rova or less has to be taken away. Rova or more has to be taken away. So we see the shiur of climb is rova, right? But my time the Yeshua says based on sign. Nemar kan sodcha, it says here sodcha. Nemar la'alan, it says later on by leket. V'shachach omer b'sada, when you forget an omer in the field, and there it's going to tell us. We're going to have later in the Masechta a limud that masod shnemar la'alan sosayim. There it's a soda of two saws. Afkan sosayim. My time to Rabitar from Shisha what's like Rabitar says 6 on 6. Me'aguga. That's the size of a vegetable patch. That's how people plant. And then the vegetable patch is like a small field. For any member say America they leaks of Lishlos V'lach Kidvarav. Allah is like him. Ma Kitsira Adera Kotrim. How does he learn it? He learns it from a Svara. It says Kitzircha, right? So Kitzircha Dercha Kotrim. The way people harvest. Or afilu koshu. That's the case, maybe a koshu. No. Mimad ychsiv asher lo milei kapo. Says he who did not fill his fistful. Kotzer. Full of the harvest. V'chitz no. And his quiver. Mamer from the sheaves. This we infer it has to be a normal katsira, not a koshu, and I guess because we have these two things here, his kaf and his chotzen, so I guess in that we learn that it's two sicklefuls, one sickle which is in his hand, and the other sickle which is already in his backpack or whatever. Okay? Now, the way we've learned till now is like the next Mishnah. We're on the top of Yud Zayin and Aleph. Yaakov, you with us? Yeah. In body or in spirits? All right.
Here, by the way, it's one long Mishnah.
Here it's on the Mishnah, okay. All right, but which makes sense because of Machlokas. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Karka Koshu Chavis Peah. Any size plot, even the size of a small nut, whatever, it's already Chavis Peah. And besides that, Bikurim, you bring Bikurim from a small plot. You have to have a little bit of land in order to write a prusbul. So this is sufficient. And there's a halacha of kinyan agav. That when I buy land, I can buy with the land, agav karka it's called. Together with the land, I can buy all sorts of movable property. Okay, through the vehicle of kesef, shtar, and chazaka. Normally, I can't use kesef, shtar, and chazaka on movable property. What's the only kinyan I can use on that? Two kinyanim actually. Mashicha, pulling, and Hagbah, picking up. But when I do it agav karka, so all the kinyanim which work on karka work on that property as well, which is how they sell chometz to a goy. They do kinyan agav. They sell them all the metachlin agav karka of all the agav karka, agav a piece of land. Right, it's like piggyback. Right. Hakoysim nechasav shchimera. Well, this is halacha from Babasa. This is known to us in the Bavli. If somebody writes his property as a dying individual, shiur karka koshu, if he leaves any bit of land for himself, matnoso kayamis, his gift is fixed, and even if he recovers, he cannot renege on the gift. Because if he left himself land, and if he had enough awareness to leave himself land, means he had enough awareness to give a kinyan which he meant to give, even if he survived. Lo shiur karka koshu, if he didn't leave himself even the slightest bit of land, the gift is not a valid gift. No, meaning, if he survives, he gets the property back. It's interesting, halacha. Somebody divides all his property among his children, and he allots to his wife a small piece of land of the ksuvasa. She loses her ksuva. Because we say, oh, you accepted that in lieu of your ksuva. Stupid woman, but she did it. Okay? Rabbi Yossi ran kibla aleh.
What did she accept?
A piece of land.
Yeah.
Even the smallest amount, correct?
And she made a kinyan with
yes. No, we can't make akbar on land. She accepted a shtar, right? She made a kinyan, and as a result, she loses her ksuva. Rabbi Yossi in kibla aleh, if she accepted ava b'shlo kasuva, even though it's not explicitly written into a document of the ksuva, she loses her ksuva as a result. Okay, Rabbi Ami b'shem says more. Rabbi Ami imi. Says here, B'Shem Harishim ben Lakish. Boy, he asked the question. Hagat smicha. Imagine yourself. Literally means reach yourself, but it means imagine. In the Yiddish, they have a term for the English. There's no good term for the Yiddish. The term is shteltzich for. Right? Imagine what's going on here.
Put yourself in his shoes.
What? No, but there's nobody's shoes here. It's like, stretch your mind. I got some Korakiv, he had one stalk of grain. One stalk of grain standing there. It has one kernel in it. Actual Kotzar ain't kan shiur peah before he starts harvesting. There's no shiur peah, right? Because he didn't harvest yet. Misha Kotzar, once he harvests, he got shiur, there's nothing left. So what's he getting peah from? It's not one kernel of grain, it has many kernels. But there's one stalk. So how's he going to get peah on that stalk? Before he harvests, there's no shiur. Once he's harvested, he's already harvested already. How is Rabbi Akiva learning? There's nothing left to give peah. It's a great kasha, right? So no, it's not such a great kasha. Rabbi Chanina b'shem Rabbi Pinchas said, "Tifater, resolve it." There was one stalk there, in which there were 5 of those little, whatever they're called. The stuff which holds the kernels. The slitty slickers, you don't know, neither do I. But they're chamesh shibolim. They're 5, let's call them kernels for our sake. So 5 kernels, so you give 1 kernel as peah. You have this one stalk with 5 kernels. You take 4 kernels for yourself, and you give 1 kernel as peah, right? Rabbi Monabay asked. Now here it's a contraction. Yerushalmi has a lot of contractions. There should have been apostrophes here. Yes.
2.
What?
Why not 2?
They might normally grow in 5s, for all we know. I'm choshesh that.
The point being that anything more than 1.
Right, anything more than 1. Yeah, I suspect that they grow in 5s normally. So it says more. Raimon asks the question: V'leis anan amar kama koshu chayavis bepeah. It says least not leis none here, right? But leis none is a contraction. It means didn't we? So I can understand. V'leis anan amar kama koshu chayavis bepeah.
Okay, so that's true.
But it means we have said leis anan amar. Shouldn't we have said kama koshu chayavis bepeah? Any standing grain is chayim peah. Why did it say karka? Karka is a strange lashon used by peah. By peah, it's not a din in the karka; it's a din in the grain, right? So why does it say kama? This is more. I'll tell you why. Ela begin to Tana, because the Tana mentioned speaking also about bikurim, where bikurim of course have to do with karka, so therefore tiny karka. That's why it says karka. Okay, karka really taka doesn't relate to peah. By peah we should use the word kama, but since we're talking also about bikurim, so that's why we use the word karka. Okay, Tani, we learned in a brisa. V'arayon. It says in order to be chayiv to go up to Aliyah L'Regel, this is the Gemara beginning of Chagiga on the Bavli. In order to be chayiv to go up to Aliyah L'Regel, you have to have some land. Only landowners are chayiv in Aliyah L'Regel. You don't have to go up to Aliyah L'Regel if you don't own any land. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, "B'shem lo karka patur min rayon." Somebody has no land, he's exempt from rayon. Rabbi Mona Boy Ramon asked, "V'lama." Here it's also contraction. It says lananon. Lama lo anan amar. Why didn't any of us say? Lo didn't. Anan we. Amar say. Mishain lo karka patur min avidui. So he doesn't have karka, is exempt from vidui maestros. For coming at the end of every 3rd year, bringing his maestro to the Beis HaMikdash, the maestro from the last 3 years, and reading that parsha, the beginning of Parshas Kisava, right? Biarti HaKodesh min habayis. So it says the Gemara, as it says, the Siv min adama shenasat lanu. It says you have to say min adama shenasat lanu. If you don't own land, you can't say that. Rabbi Yossi Barabun Rabbi Yochanan said, Omar Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi Bei Rabun b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan Omar Shmuel Sakain. He said there is taka such a sugya. Rabbi Yochanan said it over. What did Rabbi Yochanan say? Over the same thing. Mishain lo karka, somebody who has no land, patur min avidui. It's exempt from vidui. The Chsiv, it says min adama shenasat lanu, from the land which you gave to us, and he can't say it. Rabbi Yossi b'Shem Rabbi Yerushalmi Levi also said, "Mishain lo karka patur min ariyah." He's somebody who has no land is exempt from riyah. Why? Shenamar says liachmad isha saitzcha. It says nobody will covet your land when you go up shalosh pamim b'shana 3 times a year to Aliyah L'Regel. So we see here you have to have artzcha. Now once we're on the topic of riyah, let's do some agarita about this. Maisa. A little bit of Agarata. Maisa Bechad. We're on the set. If you look at the opposite, the end of the first Tosfos. The end of the first Tosfos. End of the first Rivaz. The end of the first Rivaz. So 2 lines above that. The same line above that. Maisa Bechad Shiniach is Kerio. So an individual, the time the base Hamidah existed, who left his barn. And he came back from Aliyah L'Rev, he went up to Beit Yerushalayim. He came back, so he found it protected by lions. Because it says, they won't want your land. Maisa Be'echad, it was a Maisa individual, Sheniach Bayi Shotani Goylim, he left his chicken coop. He came back from Yontif in Yerushalayim, he found that the cats who assaulted the chicken coop were ripped up in front of the chicken coop. So a nace occurred that instead of the cats ripping the chickens ripped the cats. Okay? Chad Barnash, certain individual, Yerushalmi Peah, he went to Yerushalayim and he left his house unlocked. Forgot to lock it. Vasa, he came back, Vashka Chachina, he found a snake. Kricha wrapped al karsai on the handle, so no goyim can get in and steal from him.
This God chose in the Bavli also.
It is in the Bavli? I don't know if it's in the Bavli. It sounds familiar, probably because you've read it places, like maybe the Jewish press or something like that. But I don't know what's allowed to read the Jewish press, but maybe something. Okay, right. Pinchas Nishtai. Pinchas told over how they knew the following story. Train Achin Avu Bashkelon, the 2 brothers who lived in Ashkelon. Avu and Megurin Nochain, they had Goyish neighbors. Armin, the Goyish neighbor, said, Kidein Ilin Yehudoy in southern Yerushalayim, when these Jews go up to Yerushalayim, Ananaz bin Komat Yisrael will take everything they got. Min the Salkin, once they went, Zimilem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Malachim. Hashem brought to their Malachim, who lived in their place, and Nichnasi v'yotzin, they went in and out, b'dmusa, and they looked like the householders who had gone to Yerushalayim. Min the Nachtun, well, just before they came back from Yerushalayim, Shochul Nun mi, come on, they sent the message in front of them to their Goyish neighbors saying, we're coming back. Amrulon, so they said, the Goyim said to the Jews when they got back from Yerushalayim, Onavisan, where were you? Amrulon, so they said to them, Yerushalayim, we're in Yerushalayim. Amrulon, so the Goyim said, Man Shvaktun, Shavkusun, who did you leave in your house? Who did you leave? Bego Beitz in your house. Amru, they said, V'lo Barnosh, we didn't leave any people there. Amru, so the Goyim said, Brich Elahon, blessed the Yehudai, blessed is the God of the Jews. The Lo Shavkun, who didn't forsake them, the Lo Shavkun, who didn't allow us to go in, the Lo Shavik Lona did not forsake the Jews. Okay? New issue. Actually, getting back to the Mishnah. Minayin, how do we know there's a concept Kinyan Agav? Now, the rest of this Gemara, till the Bani Yuches Malaf, is all stuff which appears in the Bavli, and mostly above Basra. Minayin l'chazim shein le'machrayis, shein l'chazim sheish le'machrayis. How do we know that property which has no guarantee, in other words, movable property, objects, can be acquired, Aga, piggybacked on the chazim sheish le'machrayis, on property which has guarantees, meaning real estate, because of shtar v'chazaka, with the kinyanim of the land, which are money, documents, and taking hold of. Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi Chizkiah, Yankel, you with me?
No. Chizkiah, my favorite king. Chizkiah.
This wasn't him. This is not more Chizkiah.
I put it on a good show.
Rabbi Yisrael.
Even when I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, Rabbi Yisrael Chizkiah, Chizkiah, and Rabbi Yana and Rabbi Chanina, Teresa, they both said, to Tayyab, both said, B'Shem Chizkiah, see, it's a pasuk. It says, Divrei Yomi. Vayitam Avi, and the father gave them Atonos Rabbis, many gifts, Lakasef, silver, Lazov, and gold, Migdonos, and precious stuff, together with Olim Betzuros Yehuda, together with the fortified cities in Yehuda. So we see that he can give the stuff, the movable stuff, together with the real estate. That's talking about where the land and the movable objects are the same place. But here the cities contain the Kesef and Zav. What about b'makom echad? They're in the same place. What about hoyu karkos b'makom echad, metalin b'makom echad? What if I want to be makna to you this tape recorder here on the table together with that land in the corner? Does that work? Or does the tape recorder have to be on that land in order for it to work? Okay? So it says, Akadu and Yankel usually vote about this. What do you say? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good vote. What if the land was in one place? Let's start from the following case. Lezer said, so brought down by Basra. Maisa Medoni Echad Yerushalmi is a Maisa with a certain person from Madon who was in Yerushalayim. And he had a lot of movable objects. So Bishu Bikash L'Chalkon Elite number Matan. He wanted to distribute them to give them as gifts. But it was too much. He couldn't give it physically. So he wanted to do it with some halachic, vehicle, right? So Amrlo, they said to him, Einat Yochil Alim Knias Karka. You can't do it unless you do it a piggybacked on land. So what he do? He went and he bought a certain stone on the side of Yerushalayim, outside Yerushalayim. Varma says, Chetz Yatzvain, it's the north side of the stone, Ani Noisin Leploni, I give so-and-so, Imeach Chavil Shirayim with 100 barrels of wine, which were not on the stone, which were in some storehouse somewhere. The Chetz Yatzvain, the southern half, Ani Noisin Leploni, I give to so-and-so, in Kuf Chavil Shirayim with 100 barrels of oil, which again were not on the stone. And the came from Chachamim. The Kimu Chachamim sustained what he did. So we see that the movable objects don't have to be in the property itself. Rabbi Chanina Kumi Rabbi Mona. So Rabbi Chanina said for the Mona, no proof. No, you don't turn the page. Rabbi Chanina Kumi Rabbi Mona. We're in the fourth line from the bottom. For Lo Shchip. You're really not with me tonight. For Lo Shchimirahu. That's because he was dying. Dying people don't have to fulfill all the parameters of kinyanim. That's a special halacha by shchimera, right? And I'll give you proof. All over, a person cannot do such things unless he at least writes a document. He was even orally, verbally. And therefore we can extrapolate. Or maybe it's not extrapolating, maybe he's stating his perspective. A person can't do this type of thing unless both the land and the metallim were somewhere else.
And it's okay.
And that's why it's okay only because it's shchimera. It's only because it's a dying person.
I don't like this.
So he said, neither does Gemara. Lo said no. Rabbi Lezeri, this is Rabbi Lezeri. Shanya, Shanya, it's different. Because he shchimera, Rabbi Lezer could buy the Rabbanon. I'm not sure, maybe I'm punctuated wrong.
There's a comma after he, Shanya he.
Oh. Amalei, lo, Rabbi Lezer, he. Shanya he, and therefore it's different. Shchimera, Rabbi Lezer could buy the Rabbanon. In other words, you can't explain away this case as shchimera, because Rabbi Lezer doesn't know the concept of shchimera. He holds that shchimera is like a bari. So therefore, it worked here, it must be it works all over. That's what he says. Kininaga must work all over, and therefore here it must be, if it worked here, that you didn't need the metaltlin on the karka, you never need the metaltlin on the karka. Okay, Tamot Tzninon, we learned over there, we're on top of Yud Ches Amnaf now. Tamot Tzninon, we learned over there, Akiva says, Karka koshu chayav b'peah. Any type of land is chayav b'peah. Now that's fine. We're not asking kasha this is Yerushalmi. We're quoting a Mishnah. We're asking a kasha from the Mishnah. So we're saying, the Mishnah says that Karka koshu works b'kinin agav. The more it means to ask, wait a second. How can Karka koshu work b'kinin agav? If you require it, it's going to be in the middle, that the metaltlin around the karka. What are you going to fit on a karka koshu? What are you selling with the karka koshu? You don't like the kasha, right?
What's the question now?
The Korah's kasha is like this. Marabot wants to be arrived from the Mishnah that the metalchlin don't have to be in the land.
That's right.
Because it says karka kosher where makes the kinyan agav, even a pea-sized piece of land. If a pea-sized piece of land makes the kinyan agav, what are you doing? What are you selling agav karka? What can fit there? Says not a kasha. Or Rab Master said, "Tipoter she'ashamokom shibolas." You can answer it was a place which could hold a stalk of grain. Umargolis punabo, and you put a pearl into the shibolas. So there, kinyan agav will work, even a pea size, on something which is very valuable. So there's no right from the Mishnah. We paskin, since we use kinyan agav by mechiras chometz, obviously we paskin that it doesn't have to be besocha, the metalchlin can be one place and the karka another place.
So you wouldn't have to come on to kinyan agav.
It'd be an ease of what do you mean? Because kinyan chotzer is only the rabban and kinyan agav is the raisa. That's A.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's A. Besides that, kinyan agav can happen by asachas. Besides, a kinyan agav works even if it's not a chotzer or mishtamer. Chotzer has to be chotzer or mishtamer. If it's not chotzer or mishtamer, it doesn't work. Kinyan agav works even if it's not mishtamer. Yeah. Chotzer has to have a fence around it or something which protects it. Otherwise, anytime anything, that's very logical. Otherwise, anytime something rolled into your front yard, it would be yours. That's an untenable position in halacha. We wouldn't be able to survive that way.
But walking from the base of Gemara,
okay?
Right?
Says the more further. Ezu shchimera. What's a shchimera? Anytime the sickness did not jump on him, it came gradually. That's a shchimera and a mesukah. A shchimera is gradual. A mesukah is somebody who all of a sudden became sick. Very, very quickly, right? He's even better off in halacha. He's so better off health-wise. But in halacha, there's certain kulos which are stated by Mesukah, which are not stated by Shchimera, which particularly have to do with how to write a gift. But by Shchimera, it has to say kitzvu nu get zelishti. By Mesukah, all he has to say is kitzvu get lishti, and without the tznu, without saying give. But in any event, Shchimera is a gradual illness leading to death. Derech Eretz. What's Derech Eretz? How do you mean the mitzvah of Derech Eretz with this guy out of left field? We're talking about the mitzvah Bikur Cholin. HaKroivim, people are close to the Shchimera. Nichnasim Somiyad, they come to visit him immediately. For HaRachokim, the people who are more distant, Nichnasim Lacha Gimel Yom, they come after 3 days that he's ill. Im Kapatz Lavacholi, if he became sick all of a sudden, you got to get him while he's still there, right? So they both come in immediately, right away when he gets into Sakon. Okay? Dilma, which in the Yerushalmi means a Maisa. Dilma, the Rav Huna, Rav Pinchas, and Rabbi Chizkiah, Salkalim Vakar Rabbi Yossi. They went to visit Rabbi Yossi beside Klosi Yomi. They went to visit Rabbi Yossi after for 3 days. But it didn't go right away. In the first 3 days, they went after the first 3 days. Says the Gemara, Amar Lon, he said, Ki bo'isun mekayma masni, B. Sorry, it should be B bo'isun mekayma masnisa. By me, you want to fulfill the price. In other words, you're not my good buddies. You waited 3 days. It's not nice. Should have come right away. Okay? Shiur karka koshu. What happens if he left? If he left the karka koshu? We mentioned in the Mishnah that if he left any land over for himself, madnaso kayem, is the gift is sustained. Afilu ivri, even if he got better. Lo shiur karka koshu. If he didn't leave any land, ein madnaso kayem, the gift is not sustained. Vushivri, when he gets better. In other words, if he dies, so the gift is a valid gift. If he gets better, if he didn't leave any land for himself,
Deal's off.
what? Deal's off. If he didn't leave any land, the deal's off. Rabbi Bon, Rabbi Chia B'Shem Rav said, also divrei shchimera, this is all basic halacha. They made the words of a shchimera, even though it's only verbal, kibari shekasav nasan, like a healthy person who wrote and gave over a document.
Only if he dies.
It's only if he dies from that sickness. But if he got better, all deals are
I did
canceled.
better when I walked out. I'm putting down a great show today.
In Ivrilo, now, when he specifies, when he says, give a field to so and so, that's he has to say who he's giving what to. That's the minimum. What if he said give half and such field to so and so, half and such field to so and so? Kamisha siyem, is that sufficient? It's that considered to be specified. Does he have to specify directions, which half? Or it's by a bori for states, it's obvious. He has to say which half he's talking about. What about by Shchimira? Do we let him go? And having said a half, even though he didn't say which half. Rabbi Avinu Shem Rabbi Yirmiyah doesn't answer. New question. Rabbi Avinu B'Shem Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Avinu says near Rabbi Yirmiyah, Shir Metalchlin Lo Asav Lo Klum. If he left over instead of real estate, he left over movable objects, that's nothing. That's not considered to be left over, and therefore if he gets better, he gets back what he gave. The deal's off. Says more, come see. Is that logical? Shia karka koshu itzle mechaim. You're saying that what must be the logic that he left himself some land, even if he gets better, the deal's still on? Must be because he left himself some parnasa, meaning he left himself some land. It must be he made a cheshbon. Maybe I'll survive. I need some land on which to survive after I recover. Says more. Wait a minute. That's true. If he leaves over precious jewels and precious stones, he doesn't have to want to make parnasa. So if he left over metal, it also should be considered to be a shiur. And even if he gets better, he shouldn't be able to renege on the deal. It's good kasha. Tomorrow doesn't give it teretz. We don't paskin that way. We paskin that only if he leaves real estate is the deal still sustained if he survives. If he leaves movable objects as much as they are, if he survives, the deal is off. Okay? Rabbi Yossi, new thing. Rabbi Yossi said, Yodeh wa yishazeh. A person knows. Sheshchimira feel mizakeh feel v'ayin. Shechchimira can give a gift even verbally. What happens if he writes things down? Despite the fact that he can give it verbally. Why does he write it down with the kinyan? If a kinyan shchimira writes stuff down in a document, then it becomes a matnas bari. And even if it survives, still, the gift is on. Okay, that's another halacha. New halacha. The Yerushalmi, this is Derek, gives staccato halachas. Boom, 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 boom. Shir avadim. What if he leaves over slaves? Slaves are very often likened to karkos. What if he leaves over slaves? It says more fascinating. I think it's amazing. Only Yerushalmi. Tani Rabbi Yehuda Bar Pazi, Davar. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Pazi said something about this. Delaya about this matter. But we don't know what he said and we don't remember, and that's the end of the sugya.